Apex Legends Season 23 completely changes the meta once again. It's fun, refreshing, and the fights are completely different to how they've ever been thanks to some massive support changes. So let's break down where the legends are ranked. Just focusing mostly on ranked, but I guess if you want to figure out who you want to play in Apex Legends, this could be a good starting point as well. We're going to start from F and go all the way up to S. And yes, S does stand for support this season with a guest appearance from another class. So let's start with F tier. Seer is the only legend in F tier. Seer was once a dominant legend in the game, and he was the most annoying legend. He had extremely strong wall hacks. Now that's just been replaced by annoying wall hackers who download hacks online. But Seer could also silence people and stop them from reviving, which he can no longer do. He can still do the silence part, but that's not going to stop Lifeline reses, Newcastle reses, or anything like that. So he cannot stop the support meta. So yeah, it's Seer right now, and I'm kind of glad for it because the Seer meta was absolutely disgusting. Next up in D tier, we have Wraith. Wraith is Apex Legends' OG legend. If you want to go and have fun with her, try her in OG Royale, and you can see why she's so good then compared to how she is now. Instant phase is an actual good ability to reposition and escape. Nowadays, it's nowhere near as good. The ultimate is super fast and it lasts for a really long time. Nowadays, if you use the ultimate, it will disappear if it's out of the zone, it doesn't have a long use time, and it's nowhere near as good as the other repositioning abilities in the game currently, such as Pathfinder's Zipline, which can now be energized with a perk, meaning you don't take much damage when riding on it. So, Wraith to me doesn't have a good repositioning ability for the team anymore. Her tactical is really slow and clunky, and you're going to get caught out. And when you are in the rift, you're stuck there. So if your teammate suddenly needs help, there's nothing you can do about it. A passive can be okay sometimes, but there are so many amazing recon abilities in the game that allow you to get more information than a quick "You've been spotted" Squidward sounding voice line that plays every time a nearby enemy looks at you. Next we have Mirage. Now Mirage did finally get a change to help with the health bar problem. When he's in his ult, all decoys will have health bars now, so that's a nice change, but I must say that Mirage still doesn't really fit in the meta. Sure, he is a support legend, but all of the other support legends have better support abilities or some way to res much more effectively. And Mirage's bamboozles will end up bamboozling yourself and your teammates, which becomes a really big problem. Luckily, there are some planned changes for Mirage in the mid-season patch, so hopefully he gets some love because, well, his mother is kind of forgetting who he is, so he's not getting the love from her. Anyway, moving on to C tier, we've got Alta. I like Alta's abilities. She's a really fun pub legend. You can do some crazy outplays with her, and sometimes that even works in ranked as well. So don't get me wrong, there is potential for her. C tier is where things start to get, you have some potential, although they're not the meta picks. And Alta's tactical is really good, but it's kind of like a gamble, right? You don't know what's on the other side of that wall sometimes. If you're going to push, you could get yourself killed. You also need to know exactly how every single element of terrain or building style or box is going to interact with her tactical differently. You need to know a lot about Alta to know how to get the most out of her abilities. And if you were to learn that much on, say, Newcastle, you'd literally be unstoppable and grind all the way to Predator, to be honest. Like, having that much knowledge is better to have on a different legend. Alta's ultimate is pretty cool. Being able to pull all your teammates back together from any point, pretty nice. Really great when, say, your teammates get knocked and you need them to come back and res. In my opinion, Alta is the best solo queue legend, and in fact, she kind of pairs well with the supports at the moment. So let's say one of your randoms goes off and then gets killed. Your ultimate can be a way to get them back to you. Or let's say one of your teammates is kind of lagging behind. You can use your ultimate to bring them back to you. When there's discoordination, right? Because you're all playing... Discoordination? That's not really a word, is it? Uncoordination. Because your teammates are all solo queuing, they're not coming. Alta's ultimate will pull everyone together. So that's the only use. Otherwise, there are better choices. Next, we have Octane. So, there are so many great movement abilities in this game, but Octane has the only movement ability that damages himself. Sure, you can get perks to reduce the damage, but press Q to go faster is literally only good for increasing your dopamine levels, and it's not going to help you win many games when every other legend in the skirmish or assault category at this point has some kind of movement-based ability that's just that much better for selfish personal gain. It's fun, sure, don't get me wrong, but it's just lacking. You're not going to be able to yeet yourself into a battle with an Octane stim. You need a grapple, or a Revenant tactical, or even a Vantage tactical, to be honest. And Octane's jump pad, once again, whilst it's fun, it's so easy to shoot an Octane jump pad player out of the sky once you've got used to it. Even tap strafing Octane jump pads. It's just a little bit limiting, and honestly, once again, the superior movement choice, the super long range Pathfinder zipline, whilst energized, is the best option. Honestly, Pathfinder's zipline is just better than Octane's jump pad in every way, and I mean, unless you just want to have fun, sure, go for Octane. Now, next up, we have Ballistic. Ballistic can win 1v1s with his tactical. That's pretty cool. But guess what? A 1v1 is not going to mean much unless you've already knocked the 2 other players and the remaining player isn't a support legend. Because if they are, then it's not going to be a 1v1 anymore. Your enemy's just going to Newcastle res, or Lifeline res, or Gibby res, or whatever it may be. It's just hard. Like, honestly, Ballistic can be fun, but I think that he's lacking that true power. Like, the silence really is, I mean, the tactical, the smart pistol thing, it really is just like targeting. Like, you target one player, you take that 1v1, and you enter a fight. Like, it's okay, but like, it's just so easy to kind of keep the fight going nowadays with other legends. So, you know, honestly, Ballistic hasn't really gone any better or any worse with this season necessarily, but it's just not easy to make that 1v1 mean much anymore. Now, next up, oh, by the way, before we move on to the next one, Ballistic's ultimate is pretty cool, but looting is a lot easier now. It's so easy to get the attachments, especially late game with the mythic bin, the gold bins. It's a lot easier to power up your gear, so sure, having a third weapon can be useful sometimes, but it's not going to win you many games. He's more of like a lot of people can have fun with Ballistic, and if you just want to focus on shooting and make sure you hit your shot, he can be a good legend for it, but he's not great. Next, we move on to Caustic. I was a bit unsure about putting Caustic into this low tier, because I think Caustic can win games. Caustic's a controller legend, which means he has extra health once he's in the ring, right? So off drop, he's already got 25 health more than everyone else, right? He can get red tier level armor very early on, right? Pretty good. And he's also fortified as well, which means he's got quite a lot of extra tankiness. And he's not quite as big as Gibby or even Newcastle, I'm pretty sure, in terms of hitbox size. So he's actually quite a tanky character. The gas traps also allow him to really sustain himself in an area for a long time. He can keep fights going for far longer than they should be allowed to, because gas slows down everybody. But once you realize the gas doesn't do that much damage, and you can just run through it most of the time, especially if you've got movement abilities, Caustic kind of falls down. If you want to play that controller play style, where you sit up in a building and you do it, then you can wait till the end game, where in the past, Caustic's ultimate was amazing for securing yourself that victory. You just throw your ult on the enemy team, push down, and take the win. And unfortunately, that's not as possible anymore, because you have a lot of abilities that block grenades. So basically Gibby Dome, Lifeline ult, or more importantly, Newcastle's Energized Wall, which will just delete it, just like Wattson's ult. It's got a trophy system on it now. If you throw anything at the front of Newcastle's wall, it will be zapped out of the sky if that wall has been placed within the last 15 seconds. So it's not as good. I think he's lost that sort of like super late game power, but there are legends later on in the list that have got a lot more power. Next up, we have Crypto in C tier. I was almost thinking about putting Crypto in D tier, you know, but Crypto is for C for Crypto. No, that's not really the reason. The reason being, he's still got quite a lot of recon potential. You can just throw his drone out at any time and you'll know all of the enemies in the area. And yes, it is far easier now as a support legend to get your team back in the game. You got Mobies when you hit a respawn, when you click on a death box, or when you craft banners, right? So it's so much easier as a support legend to get your team back in, but Crypto's ability to go in his drone and quickly grab banners and then quickly instantly respawn is pretty okay still. But I wouldn't put him any higher because his EMP doesn't stop Gibby Domes. I don't think it stops the Lifeline. Oh, I don't think it stops the Newcastle Tactical. It's pretty useless. And if you try and do an EMP charge push, right, you do your EMP shield charge, you do 50 damage to try and then go and push off of one shield cell on a support will now re-heal any damage a crypto ult does. So if you go and EMP a whole team of supports, it means nothing. You can't push off of it. It's kind of crazy. So useless ultimate again, but his tactical is pretty good for recon, and he can go off the grid, although it did get nerfed a little bit, so he can be easier to spot. So yeah, he's kind of C tier instead of like A tier last season. Right, now we're getting into the juicy legends. From B tier onwards, I would say all of these legends are pretty good. I think that, honestly, if you really want to rank up, you're not, you're throwing if you're not taking S or A tier legends, but these are still okay. They're pretty decent. First up is Bloodhound. Bloodhound scans still provide a lot of information. The Bloodhound ult is going to give you a lot of movement, and it's going to allow you to see a lot of information as well. Bloodhound's great to initiate a fight and just get that information, get that boost of speed you need to just go and shut things down, especially when things get a little bit chaotic, when squads are rotating in, there's carnage all over the place. Just a well-timed Bloodhound ult, honestly, can help you pick up a lot of extra kills when things get a little chaotic, and that scan is pretty awesome. Next, we have Catalyst. Catalyst ult is pretty great, I think, in this meta. I think one of the biggest problems right now is you have a lot of domes. You have the shield from Gibby, you have the shield from Newcastle, you have the Newcastle wall tactical, and the lifeline ult. But that is impenetrable cover that you now have to pass through to go and attack. A Catalyst ultimate is going to give you the ability to move up out of line of sight to potentially create that close range fight, right? Sure, you could use a Newcastle tactical, but also a Catalyst wall could give you that little bit of extra information. I'm not saying Catalyst is the best legend in the game, but I think the ultimate within this new shield support meta does have some potential for sure. Catalyst is also a really good legend for locking down buildings. She's controller, so that's pretty good as well. So yeah, I think Catalyst is okay, not too bad. Next, we're moving on to Vantage. Vantage is extremely underrated. Vantage's tactical is a little bit better at moving around now. If you choose the perk that allows you to shoot a player with the ultimate and then recharge a tactical, you can move around really quickly. Super strong ability for mobility, and her ultimate is really powerful now. You hit the first shot on a player, it does 50 damage, and the next one does 125 once they are tracked and targeted. So you can two-shot blue armor players. She's really strong, amazingly good for initiating fights. One thing I would say though is if you try and snipe someone long range, nowadays by the time you get there, they're just going to be revived because of Newcastle, Lifeline, and Gibby. So it's harder to create a pick and push on it now. I feel like the era of Skirmisher Legends, that playstyle where you crack someone or knock someone and instantly push to wipe them out, is not as possible anymore with these new support changes. So something to consider, but I do think she's still quite underrated. Next, we have Loba. Loba is the next support legend, or the first support legend in this list. Loba doesn't have any extra abilities to help reviving, so that's why she's not rated higher. All of the support changes right now really benefit those support legends that have extra protection when reviving. Loba does still allow revive teammates to get increased health regen, so they'll get back up off their feet and they'll start getting health regen, but she can't heal players safely. There's no shields or anything like that, right? So that's why she's B tier and not A tier. She still has the support perk. She can still bunny hop heal, which is nice. And her ultimate is great for looting, so she's pretty useful. And also, she's great at escaping. So her tactical is one of the best abilities for escaping. You can throw it really long distance and run away when you need to. It's hard for a Pathfinder and Revenant to chase a Loba. It's probably one of the only support legends that can't be chased. Obviously, you have Newcastle that has a wall and you can throw his ultimate, but he doesn't have anything outside of that. The Loba tactical is really, really good, especially with the perk that increases the distance. So, yeah, she's great at running away. Just don't run away too much when you play her, or you're going to lose out on a lot of KP. Moving on, we go to A tier. This is where the fun begins. All of these legends are absolutely amazing in the meta, and honestly, if you engage with this new shield meta, you either take a shield-heavy legend team like Newcastle, Lifeline together, or you build the anti-meta, the legends that can deal with the shields and fight against them. It creates this really awesome sort of rock, paper, scissors gameplay that's really unique and refreshing for Apex, so we'll get more on that later. Firstly, we have Valkyrie. Valkyrie's ultimate is still one of the best repositioning tools in the game right now, and paired with her perk that allows her to see all enemies through walls. It's amazing for getting rats and getting free kills. It's amazing to make sure you reposition late game and get somewhere safe without landing on another team. Really, really powerful ability. Her tactical is actually a pretty good option. Once the Newcastle Energized section has run out, you can use it for that. You can use it to throw it inside of a Lifeline ultimate because there's no top on the Lifeline ultimate. It's a nice little counter to the shield meta. Not perfect. There are some better choices and we'll get on that in a minute, but it's pretty decent. So honestly, all around, I think Valkyrie is a pretty great choice and you're going to do well with her if you play her playstyle right. Next up, we have Ash. I think Ash is extremely underrated in this new meta and also really, really good dealing with a couple scenarios. So we're going to try and explain Ash's kit on the attacking side when you push a fight with the support and also trying to deal with the support legend. So popping an ultimate, her portal, and then running in as a team and then popping down your shields, so your Gibby Dome, your Newcastle Tactical, your Newcastle Wall, is a really great way to engage a fight. The reason being, the difficult thing with the shield meta right now, if you're not experienced and you're not coordinated, is bridging the gap between the fight. You want to get up nice and close and personal, so you can play in and out of your shields through a bunch of shotgun damage, right? And by initiating the fight with an ultimate from Ash, it's actually pretty decent. But that's not the best part of her kit, honestly. Actually, her ultimate is kind of a bit lacking and needs some love. But her tactical, especially when you get the Greedy Snare perk, is amazing for the current meta. So everyone's really close quarters now. Everyone's really bundled tight together. Everyone's sticking by their support to make sure that they can res each other. There's a lot of close quarters action, and knocking people from a distance is not as important anymore. Ash's Greedy Snare perk will allow her tactical to stun multiple players multiple times whilst it's on the ground. So you can keep restunning the same players. Not stunning, but they get chained to the spot and it deals damage. Over time, that damage can stack up. So if there's a player in a Lifeline ult or in a Gibby Dome, or even if you throw it at the side of a Newcastle ultimate, you're going to keep doing damage as that team stays there and tries to reset. They're going to be chained to the spot, which means you can follow up with nades. Greedy Snare is a really good counter to the current shield meta. I don't think the best counter, but it is pretty good. Up next, we have Fuse. Once again, Fuse's damage-based abilities that allow you to just throw AoE damage is going to allow you to disrupt the shield meta right now. You can throw your knuckle clusters at the edge of your Gibby Dome or your Newcastle Tactical to try and slow down people pushing in. Let's say you just reset, right? And you need a second to get your health back up just after winning a fight. And you got a team pushing you with a Newcastle wall and they're coming into your Lifeline ult or your Gibby ult. If you throw your knuckle cluster at the corners of your shield, right? Whether it's a Gibby Dome or a Lifeline ult, those players are going to have to take damage as they peek you. And that sort of knuckle cluster effect bouncing all over in people's faces is going to affect the way they can see you and shoot you. So it's a really great way to slow down pushes. You can also chip damage when there are reses happening if you can get the angles right. Obviously, it's not perfect if you're going against Newcastle because the energized wall will stop it, but it's really effective. And also the ultimate is going to be really good up close at stopping pushes as well. So it helps to disorient teams that are trying to push up close and are using close quarters. And it allows you to have that little bit extra room and distance to try and reset or prepare for a fight. Next, we have Bangalore. I think Bangalore is an interesting option as always. Right now, her smokes have been improved a bit, so you're less likely to get sneaky angles of people's health bars through the smoke, which is great. It's the best sight blocker in the game. There's no way to counter it. No recon scans will work through it anymore. So you throw it. If there's a teammate or an enemy on height putting pressure on you and you need to rotate into the ring, a long-range smoke grenade to just completely blind them is the best thing in the game. There is nothing quite like throwing a smoke grenade on an enemy team that's putting a lot of pressure on you to just completely stop them from being able to do it. And I don't think there are any other abilities like that. It's really amazing. She has such great repositioning ability because of that smoke, being able to block sight lines. But if you throw smokes all over the place, you are going to make things a little bit difficult for your team. So you got to think carefully about how you use your smokes. Bangalore's ultimate is also really good at slowing down pushes as well, which once again, once a team of you got a team of Newcastle players, right? Newcastle, whoever else on the team, they're running up a hill with their Newcastle tactical out. They're behind it. They're getting ready to push you. Throwing your Bangalore ult is going to slow them down a bit because they're not going to be able to run through a field of missiles with the Newcastle tactical. They end up getting hit. So it's a great way to slow down pushes if you're getting pushed. Next up, we have Wattson. Watson's abilities are pretty good, and she also has a perk that allows her to heal players and get them off their feet and have health regen, just like the support. So she basically takes the support passive. Pretty good. Her ultimate is going to stop a lot of nades. So what you're going to see is this fork in the road. You're going to see the support legends, and then you're going to see the damage-based legends like Fuse, Ash, and Maggie, which we'll get onto in a minute. So Wattson still provides perfect protection against all of those annoying things. So you're going to be able to still go ahead with pushes or heal up or whatever. All of the abilities in the game that are projectile-based will be stopped by Wattson's ultimate and forever. You know, unlike Newcastle's ultimate, which only lasts 15 seconds, Wattson's ult will last forever so long as it's not destroyed. And also, Gibraltar's really common in this season, and Gibraltar's new perk, Big Brother, allows his ultimate size to be larger. Watson's ult will completely eat that up. Next on, we move on to Rampart. Rampart's been really strong in the meta, especially in ranked. She can now land on the ground if you didn't know, and within I don't know what the time is, maybe like 30 seconds off drop, she has 50 ammo in her turret to go. And over time, her ammo will keep charging in the turret, so you always have the turret. I think G Dolphin did a solo to Masters Sheila only last season, during a season which had record numbers of cheaters. And he did it with only Sheila and under 24 hours. It was ridiculous because it's so broken and nobody realizes. Sheila is the highest DPS gun in the game with 2 times headshot multiplier, which no other guns have currently, especially not assault rifles. It's easy to use long range. It's easy to use close range once you get the hang of it. It can rip through everything pretty much. It's ridiculous. Now, a lot of people were saying, okay, you can't destroy Newcastle walls anymore. So that's going to slow down Rampart. But it's quite nice. Rampart can just shoot a wall, okay, a shield, whether it's a Gibby Dome or a Lifeline ult, right? She can just hold down the turret, keep firing, and if there's players on the other side trying to peek to do shotgun damage, which is the meta, you know, you peek these shields with shotguns, they'll just get shredded. They won't be able to peek you properly. It's an amazing counter to Newcastles and Pathfinders and Gibbies trying to peek you with shotguns. It's absolutely ridiculous. Really, really, really good. And her walls are okay as well. They do amp damage, so that's nice. But mostly it's just her turret. It's just her turret. It's so good. Next, we have Conduit. Conduit is in A tier. She is a better support than Loba. She's going to allow you to get extra shields to your teammate in fight. But it's mostly her passive now, which is really handy. If your teammates get downed, you can run quickly to your teammate. So basically how it works now is her passive will give you increased movement speed when you run towards any downed enemy at any distance whatsoever. There's no distance limit on it now. In the past, I mean, currently there still is a distance limit if the player isn't downed. But if they are now downed, there's no distance limit. But more importantly, if your teammates are killed, you will get a speed boost when you run towards their death boxes, and you'll get a speed boost when you run towards the replicator. The speed boost is pretty fast, so you can just constantly run towards a replicator on the other side of the planet at faster speeds to run away from a situation when your teammates are dead and to go and craft them quickly. And remember, all supports now, when they craft banners, will get a respawn beacon. The respawn beacon will come down to the ground much quicker now, and you can reset with that. Really, really good. And also, the Conduit ultimate is pretty good at slowing down pushes from, once again, that Newcastle shield push, I think. It's pretty decent and gives you a bit more control of the playing area. So pretty nice. Not the best support, but pretty good. Next, we have Mad Maggie. Now, I am so surprised at Mad Maggie. When I heard this season that Gibraltar's tactical could not be destroyed by Mad Maggie's ball, and pretty much all of the other support shield abilities couldn't be destroyed, I thought she was going to be pretty bad. But after playing her, I realized she is really good. It turns out you kind of don't want those shields to be destroyed. You can peek in and out of shields just like any other player, and then instead of using a shotgun, you just throw your ultimate down. You can put an ultimate into an enemy Gibby bubble or an enemy lifeline ult, and it's going to be filled with thermite damage if you got the perk for it. It's going to stun and knock all players inside it, and they're screwed. They're either going to have to leave their safety, or they're going to take a bunch of Maggie damage and Maggie's stun, and you're going to be able to clean up. It's really, really good. Also, the Maggie drill goes through all shields. It goes through the Gibby dome. It goes through the Newcastle tactical. It goes through the lifeline ult. So you can harass players and create pushes off of it, which is really good. It's a really, really good counter to the shield meta right now. And you're going to see a lot of Mad Maggies running around. Next up, we have Revenant. So the current meta seems to be to take 2 support legends who have quick reses and shielded reses. So usually like lifeline and Newcastle. And then a skirmisher legend that can just push themselves into the fight. So you need that sort of like quick push ability. Revenant's still pretty good. Revenant in ult form is still pretty strong, and Revenant's tactical is a great way to initiate fights. But he doesn't have any team-based movement, which is kind of difficult. So that's why he's not S tier, but he is absolutely amazing still. But he's not the best option. And we'll get into that in a second. Next, we have Gibraltar. Gibraltar's still a big boy, so he's not S tier, okay? He's still got a big, big hitbox, and he's nowhere near as good as Newcastle. If you put Newcastle and Gibraltar on a tier list, and they're the only legends on a tier list, Newcastle will be S tier, and Gibraltar will be a F tier. Like, honestly, like that's the difference in how good these 2 legends are. But Gibby's still really good. And paired with Newcastle, you basically have shields all the time. You could have Newcastle's shield up, right? The tactical. By the time that goes off cooldown, you put Gibby's shield up. So that's really great. And also, they really work well together because you can push with Newcastle's tactical, get up close, and then drop the Gibby dome down and have that shotgun fight that you need up close. Gibby is also really perfect for peeking in and out of shields because he has the shielded gun shield at all times when ADSing with any weapon. So he can peek through shields, get a free peek with a shotgun, and that's really great. Gibby is the master of the dome. He still is. Once he's in and out of that bubble, he's so good. You can also bunny hop heal like all the other support legends, so that's really great. His fast heal is really great. And another thing is, although his heals are not as good as Lifeline and Newcastle, they're still pretty great, right? He can throw down his dome, which now has a 17-second cooldown instead of a 30-second cooldown, and fast res his teammates inside the safety of his dome without worrying about it getting destroyed by cryptos or Maggies. Next, we move on to S tier. So the first S tier legend is actually Pathfinder. Remember earlier in this video, I talked about how most repositioning abilities aren't as good as Pathfinder's Zipline? Well, that's because they aren't. Pathfinder's Energized Zipline is amazing. It allows you to take 50% less damage from all sources, including the ring, by the way. So if you get stuck outside of the ring in, say, ring 3 or something, you can put your zipline down, and if it's energized, you will be able to survive. A lot of people don't know that. Another thing is it's amazing for getting on height. It allows you to basically get 360 degrees anywhere at a long distance, and it's a team-based repositioning tool, which a lot of them aren't. A lot of the abilities in this game, you're not all riding together at the same time, right? Even if you all take a jump pad, you could easily be targeted through the sky. You're not all jumping together in tandem, you know? It's amazing. It's the best repositioning tool ever. And also, Pathfinder's Grapple is the best ability to pair with this sort of like quick up-in-your-face abilities. You can grapple through shields. You can grapple over lifeline ult. So whatever it needs to be to start that and initiate that fight. The grapple pairs so well with shotguns as well. That mid-air accuracy is perfect when you use shotguns. So, in my opinion, Pathfinder is amazing. He's the best skirmisher legend this season. He's been a great legend for a long time. Next up, we have Lifeline. So, yes, there's been a lot of changes with Lifeline. She can now glide through the air on top of her original passive ability. Her care package is gone, and now she gets this large ultimate force field. It's basically like a Gibby dome, but it doesn't have a top. And when you're in that, you get fast heal. You can use all meds faster. Basically, if you're in this thing, you're just going to heal up real quick. It's an instant reset thing. It's insane, and it throws down really quickly, and once again, it has that same effect that it's a shield that you can peek in and out of, just like Gibby's dome. It's great for resetting, it's great for starting fights, it's really, really powerful. And obviously, she can tap her teammates to res them, and with the new support perks, they will get back up on their feet with increased health regen, and it's just absolutely ridiculously strong. Now, I don't think she's the best. Like, if we were to put Gibraltar, Newcastle, and Lifeline on a tier list and only those 3 legends, Gibraltar would be F, Lifeline would maybe be B, and then Newcastle would be S. Like, Newcastle is just that much higher. Newcastle does everything. Newcastle's reses are still the best in the game. Yes, you could argue that Lifeline can res without having to actively do it. She just taps a button, so that's kind of handy. Newcastle has to actively revive people, but now the knockdown shield on Newcastle has increased health, and you could even get a perk where you can move faster. And ultimately, if you just get good at Newcastle and tapping your teammates when they need to be rezzed, they're going to be in the fight immediately. You can just turn around fights. The crazy thing is, people who are playing the old version of Apex, where they knock a player from a distance and then push you with Revenant tacticals, Pathfinder grapples, and Octane stims or whatever, by the time they're on you, you've already got your teammate back up and they've got full health again. It's ridiculous. It's that good. Also, if you use your ultimate now, you will get shield regen. So you put down your ultimate, anyone in that ultimate area will get shield regen for a short time. So you get shield regen from the ult, you get health regen from the passive revive. Once you get your teammates back on their feet, they'll be up and ready to fight immediately. It's ridiculous. The tactical is now indestructible. You can, as a team, move across the map together under Newcastle's tactical. You won't take any damage unless you get a Maggie drill. It's amazing for pushing fights. It's amazing for repositioning. It's absolutely ridiculously strong. Everything about Newcastle's kit is just busted. So he's S tier and he will win you games. So that's my tier list for Apex Legends Season 23. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you all in the comments. Cheerio!